Opening a cosmetic surgery center isn't just about finding a great surgeon and buying equipment. It's about building a legal and compliant system that regulators and patients can trust. Too many centers rush in and end up shut down within a year. In this episode, I'll show you the exact legal roadmap to build a center that lasts. So I say it often on LinkedIn. I'm the surgeon of attorneys, and so I'm just like you, in the sense that I work in a highly specific practice area in law. And similarly, my legal setup is actually very similar to what you would see as a cosmetic or plastic surgeon. Ultimately, we need an entity. We need a legal entity. There's no reason to be operating as yourself. There's too much liability. So we're thinking about a professional limited liability company or a professional corporation. For example, in California, we had to file a professional corporation simply because professional limited liability companies didn't exist. And the reason we have professional entities is very simple. We're licensed professionals. We're also running a company. And under the corporate practice of medicine doctrine, we can't necessarily allow other non-licensed people also own that company, depending on the state. Once we have the entity picked, it's very important to have the legal foundation laid, because plastic surgeons, having worked with investors and private equity groups, are a very attractive group and have a strong demand for investors, which means they're going to be poking around into all of your legal foundation and making sure that it looks good before they buy or get involved, maybe through an MSO. This is why when we pick an entity, we want to design it for both liability and growth. So picking the right entity at the very beginning, very important. And yes, it can be changed later. I've done it before. It's very expensive and annoying. It can be done, but picking the right setup at the beginning, kind of like picking, the right house, right? It's very hard to change your house. You can do it. It's expensive, but picking the right foundation at the beginning, the right entity, is going to be what's going to set you up for growth, success, and maybe investment if that's the way that you're going. Now, once the entity is in place, the next critical step is going to be licensing and accreditation. You know the old adage that time is money? It's even more so for you, because as a plastic surgeon, you are a highly skilled professional. You went to school for a long time. Now you're finally building the business. And every month that's delayed for you being able to bill, there's a lot going on. You probably have medical equipment. You got a lease. You got staff that are coming in. And just the inability of you to be able to do procedures is now a lost opportunity cost. And so with accreditation and licensing, even if it's not an expert or attorney necessarily helping do them, an attorney can come in to make sure the people that are doing it are staying on track. So we're not signing a bad contract with an accreditation or a biller or somebody right out of the gate that then the attorneys have to work with on the back end. A theme that I'll always lean into is being much more proactive on your legal work is going to save you money. It's the same with working out, right? If you're a plastic surgeon, maybe you're doing heart surgery. If that patient had, likely had better diet and exercise at the very beginning, they may not have been in the point where they needed heart surgery. Same is true for law. If you can get in and make sure that on the front end, I or an attorney can review those contracts, especially that first year right out of the gate. And, the investment is well worth it to look at the billing, accreditation, the licensing, if you even need it in the first place. That can cut down on the time to your approval, and you're out the door, ready to go, and money's coming in. On top of those points, facility and staff standards are pretty big for MDs and surgeons. There are a lot of complex rules. There's Medicaid, Medicare, there's payers, there's cash, patients who just want to pay cash. And so what an attorney can do is really serve as a hub for all of the revenue streams. So what we give to a patient that is actually paying cash might be a lot different to a patient that's actually paying through Medicare or an insurance company or through some sort of license program with the state that's a little bit different than the other patients. And also, to really hit that point home, A good business attorney can serve, as we do, as a hub to all of your ancillary professionals. That could be a CPA, your accountant. That could be your broker and insurance. The attorney can identify which insurance is needed, take a peek at the policy, and make sure that we're aligned there and we know what we're getting into. And then those early contracts in accreditation and insurance, actually being able to negotiate those and strategically think about it from a business law perspective, you're laying that really strong foundation right out of the gate. And so if you're doing accreditation and licensing and billing wrong right out of the gate, you're just going to be unable to scale. You're going to be unable to grow, and that first year is going to be miserable, as opposed to, potentially getting out a little bit earlier and getting some money in the door and the return on your investment, which I would suspect is well over. It's generally, $200,000 plus, and that's on the low end to start a usual plastic surgery center. So although licensing gives you permission, compliance is what actually keeps you open. So picture this. You got out of med school, you're going back to the med school reunion, maybe 5 years out, and everyone's talking about the one doctor that has a few one-star reviews on Google or patient complaints. Now, that's not you, because what happened is you actually knew how to get not only reviews removed, but not have those reviews in the first place. That's because you used smart patient intake documents. You also knew how to legally navigate patient disputes. And rather than being the one that everyone was talking about, maybe gossiping about, you come in and said, no, we got legal tools in place that already handle that. Because like you, I've dealt with Google reviews and upset clients, but how you navigate those legally can be the difference between protecting your professional reputation and me Googling you online and seeing a bunch of very questionable stuff. A lawyer, very similar to a medical doctor, our reputation is everything. In fact, our reputation is often worth more than the entity itself when you really think about it at the end. You could lose a business, potentially that'd be bad. But if I lost my professional license, that's a career killing move right there. And so legal tools that prevent these in the first place are going to pay dividends and make you not the subject of that med school reunion. In fact, your medical school buddies will probably be asking you, how did you set all this up? And how do you have all this, if I Google you, all this cool stuff that's coming up? Now, on top of just good old fashioned patient intake paperwork, as well as the legal tools behind them, there's a lot of other contracts that are going on in a plastic surgery center. I'll talk about a few of them. There's going to be HIPAA compliance, right? Got to know what confidentiality, protected health information. OSHA and infection control, a lot bigger in a plastic surgery center because the procedures that you're doing may involve, blood, fluids, all sorts of protocols in terms of keeping things safe and clean, as opposed to maybe a medical spa where we're only working at the skin level. And so you're held to a much higher standard. Staff, okay, we probably have staff, medical assistants, we might have admin staff, marketing people. All of those need clear agreements. Are they contractors? Are they employees? These are all things that we want to be intentional with our legal decision making. Patient consents, liability waivers, going to be a lifesaver. Those should be at every step of the way. And they're also going to be very different depending on the type of procedure, as well as how it's being paid for. There's really no excuse for a plastic surgeon to not have some sort of compliance program on the back end. That's going to create the trust, the growth, the protection, and ultimately the legal framework so that when you're growing, when you're bringing on new staff, and when you're just running around being a surgeon, you don't have to worry that the back end of everything is clean from a legal perspective. So with structure, licensing, and compliance secured, your center isn't just ready to open, it's built to thrive. You now have the roadmap for opening a surgical center. In the next episode, we'll talk about the common legal mistakes clinics make once they pass $1 million in revenue and how to avoid them.